Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Drawing Down the Dragon. I'm Snappy, and thank you for joining me for our Inside the Soma Library special. I'm joined here by my dear friends, Subatomic, Bori, and Madalena. How's it going, guys?
It's great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, great to be here with you all. So,
Thank you.
Subatomic, amazing. Great to have you. Bori, amazing. I think Maddie just accidentally jumped off. Oh, here she is. She's back again. So, hey, Maddie, how's it going?
Cheers.
Hey, sorry. My phone's
No worries, no
overheating a little.
worries. So I'm really excited to be here with you guys. We're going to be talking and discussing the Soma Library, which is a project that you three had started along with the Ion and some other people from the congregation. And this has been a project to document, transcribe, and to continue to promote the work of Dr. Ammon Hillman. So Subatomic, why don't you introduce yourself and introduce the Soma Library to the audience and tell us a little bit about what you guys have been up to?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, so the theme I want to bring here is to be able to capture Dr. Hillman's source work and make it examinable, right? We're like a school study group, but also documentarians or textbook writers, sending previews of our chapters out to students to try out, right? There's a lot more of us than those on the call here. Contributing sources and writing and ideas and questions and sharing the info out. But it's a small group of hardworking individuals, many of whom have taken the 4-week intensive, many of whom have studied the Greek before that, right? A lot of these people even maybe took Ammon's like 3 or 4 years ago Greek course, and I know he's been doing that over the years as well, right? So many of whom have been verifying the sources for themselves already before joining forces here, right? So we're kind of like a group of nerds, study group type of thing, trying to lay this all out and make it clear. Here we get to the roots of the events leading up to the so-called Christian erasure and kickoff of the Dark Ages. And simultaneously, we get sharp on human consciousness and mystical experiences and the foundations of religion, right? Or at least we get to see the Greek version of that. We get to understand Hellenic religion, not as a myth or mere fairy tale, but inverted, right, as a priestly history with foundation grounded in the real of that mystical experience. Our ancestors weren't just going through the motions like the later church became. Our ancestors were having mystical experiences and ones that they experienced themselves, right? There's something interesting there. So when I was a kid, I always said that someday I'd really like to dig deep into the topic of the Greek gods, right? Someday, right? And I got older and here we are, except we're digging into
Beautiful.
the ancient priesthood, which is way more interesting actually to my adult self now. And I think my kid self would be pretty excited about it too. I think it's, I just never fathomed reading the myths back when I was a kid, right? So in a way, I'm fulfilling my dream and even deeper than I thought I'd ever been able to, right? So there's a whole world beneath the myths. There's a human created structure created by ancient priesthood, right? Let that sink in. But they've discovered mysteries, right? So what is all that? It's a mystery. Ha! So let's start writing about it. But when I started watching Lady Babylon, I couldn't keep up. I had to take notes to really understand and to see the chains of evidence, right? I had to start writing some things. So I thought this would be perfect to share with others and bring some others in together to help with the research and writing and sharing out of the work. And the intention is to fully research the findings and make the implications clear and to show the chains of evidence beneath those implications. And we got to back them up, right? But there's some core implications, but then there's like a whole world of Hellenic thought that, is beautiful and is sometimes hairy and interesting, right? Even if maybe somebody in their lens wouldn't call it beautiful, it's super interesting. So like, let's examine this stuff, right? So anyway, long-winded. I'd like
No,
to hand the torch over to Madalena next, and then Bori after that. And I'd like to hear what you all think Soma Library is.
beautifully said. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah, Maddie, if you're there, or Bori, if you want to take over. Yeah.
Yeah. I found the Soma library um after I'd already been watching Lady Babylon for a little while, and I was taking like notes here and there. But I found the Facebook group, and I just messaged the mods, and I didn't know anybody in congregation at all except for Cruz. Um and we followed each other on Instagram and stuff, and he was making some videos, and I was like, I was still, not sure if I was gonna share publicly and stuff, and so I was like, let me see if I can help build this. Um or help with writing notes at least and work here and there. And yeah, it ended up like growing really fast because I think we started it, at least the Discord for it, like last June. And the sub started that, and there were a couple people, and we began, making more connections with people, and people began contributing. But I mean, subatomic really laid the foundation for everybody to understand how to map this out from a very analytical way, and I love that because I was able to learn how to do that myself too. And it's just the most awesome resource, I think, that we really have, because I mean, and we have so much work still to do. But yeah, some libraries a beautiful space, and it has so many tools, and I can't wait to like explore it.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you so much, Maddie. Do you want to continue, Cruz?
Um, yeah, can you hear me?
You sound
All right.
great.
Okay, so yes, yeah, me and Madalena connected a long time ago. She started following me on Instagram. I followed her back, and then I found her on TikTok, and then we just started following each other. Um, we didn't really say much to each other for a few months. Um, uh, until some drama has started, and then she messaged me like, what's going on? So I gave her the whole spiel of what was happening. But yeah, before a little bit before that, before me and Madalena actually started to communicate, I started getting messages from Subatomic on Facebook, and he had joined a Facebook group that's up there. It's called the After Class, Lady Babylon After Class. A brother named Brady had started it, and I joined like in 2024, like summer of 2024, and then Brady made me a mod of that Facebook group. Um, and there's like a couple hundred people in there, and then all of a sudden I started getting these inbox messages from Kevin, and he's just started to blow me away because uh, he was basically showing me stuff that I was expecting to see in that Facebook group, but I wasn't seeing. So the Facebook group, that after class group was like a lot of disconnect. There's people that are interested, but that not very connected to, Amen and what's going on, right? Like it's like a inquisitive group. Like people are just trying to find out, here, uh, but not very deep. But
Yeah, we had this idea to go and make a dragons group, right? Dragons
yes,
being like the next level of people
that's exactly
breaking in a
that's
little bit
exactly
deeper, and yeah.
Right. I totally
that's
get that.
exactly where I was going. Yeah, because
People who are
we
really
were like,
engaging with the literature and the content.
yeah, like we needed to create a space we can actually just drop this knowledge, and that we won't, like, we didn't want to have like combat, or anything. We wanted to have like a peaceful environment that we can share this information with people of like mind, and be undisturbed, right? Like, so we started the Dragons group, the Facebook Dragons group. But then we were also participating in the subreddit, the Amen Hummus subreddit. We were participating there. But Subatomic gave me a link. He showed me the Soma library. He's like, "This is what I've been doing with all the notes that I've been taking."
Yeah, I was
And
I was so impressed. I
I
am so
probably-
impressed.
I might have started with some PDFs. I had like 6
yeah,
different transcripts, and I was sharing them around with people.
It's also just so wild to me because a little bit before you guys, you guys are kind of the second iteration of this kind of idea. And you guys all know about this from the subreddit with Ion. Too bad he isn't here because he could talk about some of this early history. But Ion, as well as a guy Sular, there was Nathan, there was also Banvi, and they were involved in this thing called the Museon. But the Museon Discord wound up falling apart because Ammon. It's such a weird story. We won't get too derailed, but Ammon had met this like shady billionaire guy who was trying to start a school with him, and then they wound up hitting into an ideological kind of thing where the guy was basically like, if you guys can't drop the anti-Christian kind of lens, then we can't support you. And anyway, the whole project wound up falling apart, and it was really sad because so many people had spent time doing all of this transcribing and really looking into it, and I was afraid it all falling apart. And then meanwhile, behind the scenes, Subatomic is here, and then you guys picked up the pieces and kept going, and that's just so amazing.
It's wild because like we knew that there would be a certain point where we would have to bring this to to people like you from the first iteration, right? So that's how Ion was. He was active in the subreddit, so we got to see him a lot more, and we kind of built a rapport with the Ion, and then that's how we brought him in to the Soma library, right? And little by little, people like Wretch started coming in, and I think it was Gamby was in there for a little bit.
Andy was an original guy too with Omnia and the Museon.
Yeah, and so we knew that there would be a certain point in time where we would have to bring in the OGs, right? Because but yeah, it worked. It's working marvelously. Like the kind of I get blown away all the time. Like you guys know that I don't really know this stuff, right? I'm an artist. I'm a musician. Like I'm not very like studious in that sense, right?
Well, that's one of the reasons to create this, right? I think there's a lot of people who put it on, they watch it, they kind of note some things in their head, but there's a lot of details that really fly by in these live streams. Even lately, where there's maybe like a solid nugget in sort of the middle of the live stream, there's a lot of Junius action and a lot of excitement, a lot of like, pictures and stuff, which is all fun. But, then the scholarly part, I call it, is like right in the middle, and it's like 30 minutes or something, right? And where he's showing some sources and like, look, the baptism uses the purple, it's right here, right? And he shows it to you. But then like, after you're done watching, you're like, well, wait, who said that? What time period? Like, what was the significance? Why was that author significant? And there's so many more details, right? And so I found myself, when I took notes, I would ask myself all these same questions. And so then I'd try to write them into the notes, right? And say, oh, here's the background on this one word thing that Amen said and looked at the screen like knowingly that we're supposed to pick up on it, and so I like figured it out. Here you guys go. Right.
Well, this is so much of the fun that we, I mean, Emin has kind of lightened up, I think, and he's been a lot more willing to expose knowledge as the seasons have gone on. But if you go back to the initial ones, especially, right, he would drop all of these, like,
nuggets.
Half the time he's talking in quotes. He's dropping all these nuggets. He's referencing these sources. So, like, we were just like, when the first time we heard it, we're just like, what the hell? What is this? What is this? I gotta go. What is that?
Yeah.
So everyone kind of needs that roadmap, though.
Yeah. It's like a game, right? It's like serious gaming.
But it's also what's kind of needed, because one of the things that, we can talk about this in sort of like, one of the things that people get frustrated with Emin, but is part of the magical tradition in which he's coming out of, is this idea of study. He can't tell you the answers. If he gives you the answers, then you won't understand the question. You have to go through the experience of reading and coming to the conclusion yourself. Otherwise, he's doing you a disservice, and he's hindering your progress as a student. And a lot of people get really frustrated with this because they want the answers, but you got to find them. You got to go digging. And the Soma library is a great resource if you want hints and tricks.
and that's exactly. That's kind of like what I was getting at as well too, because like I don't have the type of resources. I have Google and I have AI, right? And then I was trying to figure out the Perseus Tufts, right? I was trying to figure out the LSJ, right? And that took me months. It took me months to realize that to search the way to search up a word, there's a key on the side with the English alphabet and the Greek alphabet, and and that's how you do it. I was doing it wrong for like months, and I was hitting brick walls, And so what the Soma library is like a tool that somebody like me was like, wow, this is. I didn't even know I was looking for this, but but I found it, right? Like it's right here now, and I can use this. People don't really know that the search function is super powerful on the Soma library. Like it has where you could search a word, or like is it 2 or 3 words at a time, Sub?
Yeah, you can search multiple words if you comma separate.
Yeah, you could. Okay, and or like a phrase, right? You could
a literal phrase without. Yep.
And it'll search through the website, but then it also has a function to where you could do a YouTube search, and you click on that, and this whole list of the different Lady Babylon episodes where he says that word. And then it's time stamped. You could go to the exact point in the video where he's saying it, and when he's talking about it. Like that search function in the Soma library is a game changer, man. Especially like for someone like me who I was looking to sample Amon's words, right? I wanted to sample his words and then put them to a beat, and it made it so much easier to find the word, find the right sample that I was looking for. But you could use it for real research, right? And digging into what he's saying, and he'll give you the source right there, and we have the sources there. Go ahead.
Well, let's pull up the website, and you can start taking us through a tour here, Sub. And we can start seeing what you got in store for us all.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I mean, we've got the Soma library, right? It looks like a library. Looks like an ancient Chaldean library. So just click this Lady Babylon here. Yeah, and we start out, with an invocation. Basically, it's like reveal yourself, deception, and fraud. That's the whole theme of Dr. Hillman is talking about deception and fraud and trying to preserve truth and justice and knowledge and liberty and freedom and all that type of stuff, right? And so, in line with all of the Hellenic themes that we study, it felt appropriate to stick an invocation on the top to, like, get people on their toes and to look out for deception and fraud, right? Look out for the brothel sticking their finger up your butt. So here we got the Lady Babylon page, right? Some of you have seen this before. It's meant to be read kind of starting from the top. And if you're a total newbie, don't know anything, right? We just start out with real basics. Who the heck is this, right? How do we get here today? And then we start to kind of sink you into some of the topics, right? Real quick introduction is this Medea First Christ, right? This is like one that came out a long time ago, a few years ago, but it's still pretty cool, right? And if you click it, you got a transcript, right? So you don't even have to watch the video if you don't want to.
Actually, I really like that particular video because it goes through Diodorus Siculus, which has a whole version of Hecate where she's in charge of the of the Colchians and killing the foreigners who land on her shores.
It's a cool video.
It's a cool video.
Yeah, it tells a story, right? We got a bio on Amen, Dr. Hillman here, and stuff like pronunciation, different articles, what his beliefs are, right? He says, I don't believe in anything, right? I see what the texts say, I see what the evidence says, blah, 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 right? So, finally, is he a Satanist? He's like, fuck no, I can't stand these people. On the other hand, this is where Dr. Hillman is amazing. And you have to have an intellect to understand what is in his head at any given time. He might say the same word 3 times and mean 3 different things depending on the context and depending on how you're following his brain, right? He's got one of those kind of, beautiful minds that kind of go off in all these directions, and he time travels and he projects himself into different ancient authors, and he talks as if he was them, and he says, and so, like, sometimes when he says Satan, he's talking about the modern Christian Satanists, and sometimes when he says Satan, he's talking about Lucifera, the Phosphorus, the Venus planet that rises at 4 a.m. in the morning, right, when you're doing a dawn rite. Sometimes he's talking about just freedom and knowledge,
Saturn,
and like Saturnian, right? Bacchic Satanic Chorus. Like, there's so many different ways you can talk about what is Satan, right? And so, no, he's not a freaking modern Satanist, right?
Yeah.
Well, we need to.
In fact, he's the opposite of that, right? I mean,
right.
He's he Bacchic, whatever. I don't even know. I don't think, like he says, he doesn't believe anything, right? He believes, he reads what's in the text. So, hey,
right,
interesting. So anyway, you can see all his books and stuff like that. Fun one down here is the tattoos, so you can see what his tattoos are.
I remember that, man. I remember when we were putting that together right there.
Yeah,
that was like a year ago.
Out and gave me all these little pictures and stuff. Yeah, we were trying to like straighten it out and read it and get the characters, because they're not. These are, I think, these are Etruscan characters. So we're trying to write alphabet and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun stuff.
The fun times.
Common horrifies me. Yes, I should, because your entire system of bullshit is about to fall, and you're watching it, and there's nothing you can do. Nothing. Fantastic.
Right. So you get a little words of encouragement on here too. You got an FAQ, if you really care. Here, let's go back to the main page. Yeah, anyway, so, if you don't know what the hell Hail Satan is, we got a whole page on what is Hail Satan. I don't know if you want to pause right now and we can go into it, but
well, we should talk a little bit about it, because this is something that I get all the time from people, and people are constantly criticizing Ammon for, because there is a similar, so first of all, when we're talking about Satanism, and most people understand Satanism in the modern context is either theologic anti-Christian Satanism,
Right.
which is utilizing the Christian mythos, or it's Levian or other forms of atheistic Satanism,
Right.
where they're using that to be antagonistic.
Right.
And Ammon does share the antagonism with modern atheistic Satanism. Like they're both trying to antagonize the Christian. He's trying to do satire magic. He's trying to flip the poles, and Dawn, it showed that the evil that the Christian is making fun of isn't evil, that it's all just ridiculous
Right.
by wearing these trappings. But by doing this, he's playing into a long tradition that has been established of antagonistic people towards Christianity that people get confused by, you know?
Yeah. Well, and there's this concept of the gadfly too, which,
Right.
in a really quick sense, it's like an attention getter. It gets your attention really quick and makes you question what's going on right now. Some people might run the other way, but right.
Yeah, it's all a type of magical performance, right? This gadfly idea,
Right.
the quintessential gadfly would be Socrates. And Socrates was always the center of attention. And what would he do? He'd antagonize people by asking why, by asking questions until they could no longer answer and meaning broke down. Ammon is doing similar things, pointing out the ridiculous thing. Can you answer, like for him, right? Can you answer why is Jesus Park in a public, or why is Jesus Christ in a public park at 4 a.m. with a naked boy? If you can't answer that question, then you're falling for the gadfly, right?
Yeah. And one thing I really appreciated from Dr. Hillman, and I think he said it many times, but I remember it was the 2018 interview. I think it was the women's group, Vagina Monologues or something like that. Gloucester.
That's a great one. It's one of the really early podcasts.
And maybe it's the cannabis one. Now I forget, but he's talking about the Hellenic lens and the Christian lens and the consensus lens, right? The Western lens. And like the way you look at things is different depending on if you project yourself into an ancient Hellenic pre-Christian person, and especially depending on time period, right? So there's this lens notion that if you purely use what you grew up in Western civilization, a lot of this isn't going to be understandable. You're going to hear Hail Satan and feel fear, for example, right? You might even hit the back button on your webpage or turn off your YouTube and not watch. So,
yeah. Absolutely.
So, Madalena, you've been quiet. I want to hear what you think about this one.
About Hail Satan?
Yeah.
Satan's the accuser. Who's he accusing? He's accusing God, Yahoo. He's accusing the one who invented mass annihilation, the one who's assaulting young kids and women, and I couldn't understand it for a long time, but I was like, I had to just keep reading, keep watching, keep researching, and I was trying to work through my own translations beforehand, and I wasn't getting anywhere. And I was finding all sorts of stuff, about Satan, and people were asking me once I was getting more involved, yeah, what's the hell Satan mean? Oh.
Yeah.
And can you hear me? See me?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was wondering, like, okay, how do I explain this to people who are asking me? Because people are starting to ask me more often. Like, my mom just asked me, she's like, so are you a Satan worshiper? And I'm like, it doesn't mean what you think it means. And she's like, well, I thought it was metaphor, and at the same time, I'm like, it's something way beyond that. And it's fun to read all the different texts that are talking about. It's fun to look in those, Jay, and to see like Gadfly, and to see, different texts that talk about the devil and Satan. And I think the way that it's set up, and we have like 3 Satan articles in here because of all the different rabbit holes. I found this other rabbit hole with Satana from just the name Satana, right? Like who is Satana? I'm like looking for that everywhere before I could even understand, the grammar. And I'm like, okay, who's the devil? Why is Jesus going into this void realm? And the way that it's portrayed in my mind while I'm trying to work with it is like, oh, you don't belong here. Cast yourself down. And I thought, that's weird. And I looked up and the LSJ Diabolus, and I saw grouse, and I was like, what does that mean? And spoiled milk, old woman. I'm like, well, do you think? I was thinking, could Satana be like a a name for some sort of goddess? So I looked, and sure enough, there's a
Satanaya.
yeah. Well, Satanaya, there's that. Yeah, Queen Satana is the Scythian queen who
Yeah.
was on the seven-layered tower, who looked into the mirror and could see everything, and she was depicted as being a child of the sun, of being golden and emanating radiantly, and she was like also um seen as a historical character and mythology at the same time,
Mm,
as a queen that
mm.
actually existed and being um,
Mythologized.
mythology just in like localized Georgian myth, right? And so I was reading all this stuff. I'm like, well, I wish I could find more Greek to back that up, but it's just cool because everything kind of overlaps. When you look at the Morning Star, when you look at Eos for us, when you see like really who that antagonist character is that is opposing God, right? Or Yahoo, what it really means and what the value is in looking at that, and why we even are saying, hail Satan. It's like, yeah, in a world where um, women aren't protected and where people are getting slaughtered. Yeah, and that is seen as with a mask of light and love. Yeah, of course, hail Satan. Like that hits home for me. So
Yeah.
You bringing up the accuser, the adversary, that also just is such a key part of the literature that needs to be highlighted. To the my most favorite sources that Ammon recommended that I dig into is first would be Lord Byron's Cain. And
yeah,
like one of the most memorable lines in that play is when Lucifer is telling Cain, he's like, you must look God in the face and tell him his evil is not good. And that's what you do. That's what the gadfly does. That's what Satan does. You look the tyrant in his face and you condemn him for the evil. And you see this also in Ovid's Fausti in the story of Tacita. Tacita, right? The silent goddess who's the nymph who has her tongue ripped out for what? For standing up to Jupiter Zeus and trying
Mm,
to protect her sister nymph from being raped. And for that she has her tongue ripped up and she's cast into the swamps, with Hermes who carries her. So this in many ways, when you look at that story of Tacita, it is the prototype for what becomes the story of Lucifer later in the Christian tradition. And
mm.
it's all about this rebuking of the god for their abuse, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I want to add something to that too, because also that can also be reflected like in the day to day, like in the now, in
Oh,
Oh, you
wow.
froze on us there, unfortunately. Bori, so hopefully you come back. But yeah, the Satan stuff is so wild. Anyone else have any other thoughts?
Well, I guess to close out Hail Satan, it doesn't mean anyone is a modern Christian mythos Satan worshiper. Let's just be real clear,
Right.
yeah,
right? I mean, in fact, it's the opposite, and it's you
I'm
know,
gonna
it's a gadfly sting, and it's meant to be virtuous, mirroring knowledge, justice, freedom, liberty, right, truth, all of these virtues and some
You're
good
back, Bori.
and some good
You're
arrows too, probably.
okay. I had this whole spiel that I was spitting out, and but it's all good. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just closing out the Hail Satan thing by saying it doesn't mean that we're modern Christian mythos Satan worshippers at all. And I'll address the cult accusation. There's no cult. It's a study group. And there's multiple study groups. There's like fragments and divisions, and there's so many different servers. But yeah, with the official Lady Babylon server, I think it's kind of coming together a little bit more, and the workshops I think are bringing kind of a really intellectual core together, and that's pretty cool. It's and let me just tell everybody, right? I've been through higher education, and it's academic. And one-on-one in these workshops, Dr. Hellman, he's as good or better than many professors I've had in my experience. And he respects that venue, right? That stage. And he's a solid teacher, and everyone's there for academics. Other people are there for, right, mystical things. Other people are there for, the entertainment, and right. I think that everyone's here for different reasons, but there's definitely no unified cult. I would think I would be asked to join, and I haven't been asked anything. So I'll just tell you guys.
Right. You've been here chatting with everyone, Sub, and you kind of know everyone. The same thing with Maddie. If any people were in the cult,
right?
I mean,
where's my invitation?
Out if there's a cult and I'm not invited, guys.
But, where's my invitation?
I made a comment, recently saying, if it were a cult, our knowledge would be suppressed. Our ability to go out in the world and share and learn for ourselves would be suppressed. We wouldn't we would not be functioning like this. This is a classroom, and it's beautiful, and it's blossoming and it's catching fire. And anybody that's accusing it of being a cult is either jealous or just doesn't understand yet,
or afraid,
or offended or afraid. Yes.
Look,
and
it's like we're allowed to speculate. We're allowed to dabble in spirituality and mysticism. People are free to think and do whatever they want. But here's the key thing. Is there a defining anything? Is Ammon or anyone telling anyone what to think?
No,
right? Outside of talking about
fake sources.
Yeah, he's pointing at the sources, and people are criticizing the finger, right?
Yeah.
Which, look at the source.
Yeah.
And so
Ammon is pointing at the moon, but you're staring at his finger.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Saying. It's a great
The only thing he gets mad about is when people challenge him on the texts. And the only thing he's certain of is what the texts say. Everything else is up. I remember when I was first getting into this and I started messaging him, and I was total fangirling at the beginning. One of the first things that he sent me, and was almost in some ways a go away, why are you bugging me? Was he told me to go read Cicero. And he said, read On the Nature of the Gods. And he goes, I want you to pay attention to reason, look for reason. And right in the beginning of On the Nature of Gods by Cicero is this whole diatribe about be careful who you make as your teacher. Be damn careful, because, and you don't just trust them. Go verify their work. At the end of the day, we got to follow reason, because, you're only as good as the people who teach you. And also, your teachers are always fallible. Like Cicero begins by criticizing Pythagoras, so that hit me really hard, right? As a student, because I was kind of acting in a spiritual way, and Ammon was shutting it down in a very, nice and polite way, but he was shutting it down.
In our first conversation, Snappy, you were like, "Don't make him your guru." He was like, You were very adamant about that. He's like, I learned that the hard way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Because
good
he had to
advice.
come out and tell me,
Even as your professor, right? I mean,
And-
he's a mentor, just
Yeah.
like John Scarborough was to him. So
Exactly. This is someone you learn from. He can share with you ideas. He can he can have bad ideas with you. But like the thing that I've always respected about Ammon is he's never told me what to think, and
yeah,
he's never ever gotten mad at me for anything that I've said.
right. I see it as a
In our
college.
conversations.
This is like a college
Yeah.
or a college
Exactly. Like a college professor.
or a
This is
college
really what it
course.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. 99% of the time, he's either quoting books or recommending books.
Probably the coolest
Yeah.
course that I've ever taken.
Right.
I mean, it is.
Once.
So I can say, so based on accuracy, I'll say every time I've either not understood or questioned or this, I got to be careful with the way this I'm saying this and it comes off. Not saying that there's some sort of blind faith, like fuck that. No, what I'm saying is every time I didn't understand him and I didn't see the connection he was making, when I dug in deeper and deeper and deeper, I did find it. Right. And so, at first I was like, yeah, little kid at 4 a.m. I don't know about that. Like, okay, but there's something there going on with the thirst on the thing. And so I just kept kind of picking at it and like digging into it deeper and looking deeper and learning how to translate better. Right. This is like a couple of years ago. And then, over the last couple of years, I've been learning Greek. And so, you learn the grammar rules and you learn to translate, you learn to use the tools of the TLG and the, I call it Alice, but it's Perseus Tufts, LSJ. All those things. You learn to use all these. And you heard people ask accusations, oh, he just cherry picks, and there's like a menu in the LSJ of 5 different totally freaking concepts. And he's just cherry picking the one that sounds like sex. And at first I was like, well, maybe he's doing that. And then I start digging in. I'm like, oh, this is why he cherry picked that one. Like there's a reason. And it's not because of being, what do you call it? Inflammatory or like being sensational. It's not because of that. There's actual reasons. Right. And so I started to dig for those and, his big one is this, you all recognize the pictures. They're in a park. It's 4 a.m. There's evidence for 4. I've heard people say, no, it's 9 p.m. and 4 a.m. They've got torches, right? So they've got artificial light. And then he gets arrested. And then you hear a rooster crow. Like that's dawn. It's in the morning, sometime whenever dawn happens in the morning, right? Which I get why he says 4 a.m. Right. There's reasons for every one of those little things that he tells you about this stuff. Yeah, and I won't claim to have the entire rabbit hole yet, but that's the goal.
Yeah.
So I call it chains of evidence, right? You want the chain of evidence. If you don't have the chain of evidence, you don't have it. So
Yeah.
Right. And this is an incredible page that you guys have really put together, which is so many different layers and perspectives going through all the different verses, all of the different words in the Greek, in the different various translations, with the various contexts from other books of the Bible, from other people outside of the Bible. I was really, really impressed when we were looking at this page. There's just so much here. And this really is, as we're pointing out, sort of Ammon's, it's not the core of his argument, but it is the most direct, because when we look at Mark 14:51, and we can, people want to debate and yell about what's going on here, but what I see in this particular text is a ritual magical procedure between a master and a slave that's involving a death and a rebirth role reversal, right? And it's clear, and there are clear magical parallels across the tradition before Jesus and after Jesus, where they're doing very, very similar things. Like to me, it's just it's plain as day. I don't know.
Yeah. The more you learn about the Hellenic right and start reading texts like the PGM and finding these parallels, then you're like, oh, well, this is something they're doing in that kind of time period, right? And he was like, you read the text, Jesus was friends with temple people. He was, prostitutes. He was friends with prostitutes and tax collectors or something, right? And what do you think prostitutes were? They were the temple priestesses, right? And why do you think he needed to talk to them? Well, he wanted to nerd out with the other nerds at the, these are the cult people, the ancient priesthood. They're all like talking with each other and comparing notes and maybe selling to each other. Who knows what they're doing, right? But
yeah,
they know Lydia, the purple merchant, right?
Well, like, have any of you ever checked out that incredible book by Morton Smith, Jesus the Magician?
I have not.
You guys all need to check
I've
this
heard of
out.
it.
So Morton Smith is probably the closest scholar that I'm aware of that comes to Ammon's conclusions. He challenged. Sorry, go ahead.
Isn't that the same guy with the Secret Gospel of Mark?
Yes, it's the same guy with the Secret Gospel of Mark.
Yeah.
So he's become quite critical, quite within religion studies. He's not taken seriously because the Secret Gospel of Mark has been lost. The Orthodox Church lost it conveniently, and so all of his stuff is now up for judgment. And because he's a member of the LGBTQ, they accuse him of being an activist. It's nonsense though. But if you go and you check out his book, Jesus the Magician, I actually broke it down over on Stones and Serpents with Bruno a while back for his podcast. And he actually shows you all of these contemporary sources to Jesus, who is looking at this from that Hellenic perspective. And they're like, you look like a magician, you talk like a magician, you're a magician, right? And everyone's kind of shaming him for this. And we also have to understand the context, though, of Israel and the Jewish people at the time, right? We're dealing with an ultra-Orthodox hierarchical religion that's reserved for a cultural elite that is only within the realm of marriage. Jesus is a bastard on the outside. The temple priestesses are on the outside. These are Jewish characters who are not sanctioned by the mainstream religion. They are able to wield power, but not authorize power. Anytime you have a dynamic like this, you're going to have a war. You're going to have a huge kind of fight. And this is exactly right. This is exactly what we wind up seeing is you have all of these people who are the outsiders represented by Jesus who now want to get inside, right? And you have this tension. And what do magicians do? What do we see in all these magical rites? They're taking the temple rites and they're bringing them to the masses. They're taking the divinatory, right? This is something we see in the PGM all the time. Why are they using these virgin children? Because that's what they did at Delphi, right? So, of course, at the PGM, you got to use a virgin kid, right?
Yeah, that's a trip. Yeah.
So I think we have to see Jesus as this magical outsider who's practicing a secreted sort of outsider version of the right? And so he falls into this whole milieu, this whole magical milieu, and all of this stuff is gross once you start to dig into the magic.
Yeah,
you just got to be honest.
You look into John the Baptist, and it's like, all right, this is a little bit gruesome to think about when you know what baptism really is, and yeah, what he was doing. People are going to the outskirts of town to receive his discharge, and that's I can't deal.
Actually, you guys,
And to say there's no ritual boys in any text, so there's so many. And we've been looking at all of that, so.
Right. Do we have an example of the holy blowjob?
I mean,
oh yeah,
Sanius Panarion. I mean, we beat that horse to death and basically laid it all out. That was easy. Not easy, but it was fun, right?
Yeah.
It's under this one, right?
Oh yeah.
With the sparkles.
I
Nice.
like that.
Oh,
I like that that article.
This was really fun to write. Just laying it all out. Who the heck is Epiphanius, right? What is he doing? Right? Give the little bit of background, right? And just lay that out so people want to read. But then let's do a faithful translation, right? And let's get into the translation and see what he's talking about, right? We got the Escorgion right
And
here.
Ion did a great translation of this as well.
He did a great translation, and we're missing Ion right now. Yeah, down here. Where did he do that? Yeah, down here. Ion took a crack at it. Yeah, in casting forth the woman from his side, he is beginning to intermingle with her. And truly, so upon receiving his admission, he would demonstrate that it is necessary to do this in order that we may live. Barf.
Right. Man.
Right, we gotta rub our semen in our hands, and we gotta eat
right?
it. Otherwise, we're not gonna survive. What?
So, and this is Epiphanius in what, 300, late 300, right? And you had Ignatius to the Trallians in like 100, talking about the same stuff about, I think, death-inducing drugs are being used and being slipped to unsuspecting people to get their converts to have pistis or trust in them, which is what we translate in English to faith. But
Right.
it means trust with evidence. And so they're giving them honeyed wine with the death inducer in it to unsuspecting followers to gain their trust. And that's what Ignatius to the Trallians wrote a letter advocating that they replace, I guess, Christian control with a single bishop, and saying that there are Christians doing this right now, which that sounds like the right time period for right after the apostles have kind of stopped their cult, or maybe they died out and there's a power struggle, or who knows what's going on. And this guy is trying to vie for let's put a bishop in, right? And I'm sure Dr. Hillman would have a lot more color than I'm giving, but this is what I'm Australians, right? And that's and so these are only two examples, right? And it's just interesting to see this type of stuff.
It's truly wild. Wow.
Yeah.
So I find the hardest is just linking all of the nuggets together. So, right?
That it makes cohesive sense. Yeah.
I was gonna say it's a wiki, you can hyperlink anything, but it's just it's a lot of work.
Yeah. No, I was talking about I was just gonna mention the link of the rite that's being described in Epiphanius's writings, right? And the rite that's being described in the Gospels, and the rite that's being described in Genesis, and the creation narrative. They're pretty much all the same, right?
Dude, Genesis is so cool.
I mean, is that that's they're doing the same thing. It's in each of these rites. It's I don't know. Maybe I'm just maybe the THC kicked in. I don't know.
Rum THC.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but no, that's just where my mind went when I was listening to you guys talk.
You see evidence of this stuff all over the place. Genesis is a great one. We've been digging into the Genesis translation. Amen gave multiple live streams, but there's one notable one that I remember where he really dug into it, and he really talked about Eplasin and how it's form or mold with education, not just simply create a man from the dust. It's no, you're molding and forming with education, a little bit different type of create, right?
Right.
Super interesting. And it's from Gaia, the earth, so you're forming him from, sounds like, right, there's three savors of antiquity. There's Botanica, Metallica, and Theriaca, right? And Metallica is your earths. And think about Lemnos and the Lemnian earth that the sacred priesthood would dig out and stamp with their symbol and whatever.
And Jesus spit on the ground and mixed it with mud.
And so
Mixed
he
it with
made Earth. I mean, maybe this account was even on Lemnos. I don't know. I think somebody was thinking it was Samothrace too, but you might know more about that, Snappy. You seem to know a lot of the myth and lore.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff is just kind of wild, right?
Yeah,
when
it's
we're getting
totally
into
wild.
it,
Well, the other fun thing is the Zulon, the
the
wooden thing.
Zulon.
Well, it's what people
Oh,
translate.
the Zoanon. Yeah, the Zoanon. Yeah.
Well,
The wooden,
Zulon. So
the
people
Zulon.
translate the tree,
Yeah.
right? It's the tree of life,
Right, wooden. Oh,
or the
yeah.
tree of knowledge, yada yada yada. But it can also mean the wooden thing.
Right. This has to do with the Asherah poles, right?
Well, imagine
Those are a
an
lot of the spectrum,
alabastron or a rod,
right?
the wooden thing of knowledge. Yes, what's happening?
yeah,
Love that
yeah.
Zulon. The
Right,
fruit of that wooden thing too, right?
right.
It
There's the wooden
makes me
thing.
think of all of these Demeter rites that we see, where they you got to make Gaia come, and you got to use the giant wooden phallus to do so.
Yeah.
We all got to dance around the rod. This is where a lot of those maypole rites originate.
So this is where it feels maybe appropriate to stop and say that there's an underlying thing in our consciousness that we can trigger, right?
Mm.
And there's lots of traditions across lots of religions across the entire planet, right? And you can see this from like sweat lodges and ayahuasca ceremonies to, the ancient Greek, pharmacon and death inducer stuff. Now, Amin and Dr. Hillman will point out it's way different. And yeah, with every tradition, you have a different sacrament, you have a different pharmacon, you have a different substance, and those cause different effects. And it seems like the snake venoms, from hearing Dr. Hillman talk about it, induces a near-death experience, just like an extreme descent in psychosis even, right? Which is very different than like a friendly mushroom ego death type of experience.
Well, it seems to be like when we look at a lot of these magical rites, even across culturally, there needs to be this descent, this near death. Okay.
But
Like I
all
think
of them have the descent. That's the
right.
thing, right? All of them have some sort of descent and like rise and like above and below the line or whatever. There's like cosmic mountain. Like everybody has these different,
We
but they're all
get this
variations kind of the same like mental cosmos thing, and like
right.
arranging your inner forces to be in harmony with each other, right? So you can ascend.
But I mean, it seems to be this thing where you have to push yourself to the brink of death, and then you engage the drug, and then this is what allows you to cross over into ionic life. And there seems to like this seems to be a massive key. Like when I look at cross culturally, if we look at we have, for example, the myth of the goddess Hel, and Hel becomes the one in Norse mythology who can see between the worlds and can speak to the dead. And the way she does it is half of her body dies, right? Loki takes her and he puts her into the water and leaves her to die, and then resurrects her with a potion, and half of her body remains dead. Or we see this, for example, in the Indian with Shiva and Parvati, where Shiva goes off to the mountains and he enters into perpetual meditation bliss. And then Parvati is trying to wake him up, and she has to imitate him. And in order to imitate him, she starves herself to the point of almost near death. And then she starts eating the lotus seeds. And then she achieves this mystical union with Shiva, and he wakes up.
Yeah,
so
fasting is a common component.
Right? Across cultures, even.
Across cultures. Now, I mean, one of the nastiest ones is this Hellenic one, right? I mean, with the viper venoms and the antidotes. I mean, that's metal, man. It's so like
sounds
it's not
more like sounds like a more of a hardcore experience. And
right. So I'd choose mushrooms. I think those are going to be the friendly ones, right?
But
I don't think you get the same thing out of mushrooms. To be really clear, and Dr. Hillman has been very clear about this, that it is a very different experience with that really extreme venom, right? you bring the brink of death and psychosis, and I don't think we have a good description of what it is, right? Because I don't know that anybody living here has been through it. Maybe the Venom boy on YouTube who keeps getting the bites on him.
Oh, I love that
Maybe he knows,
kid.
right?
That what is he, like 9 years old? Love it.
There's a
Right?
You
kid.
should pull up there's a kid. So there's a kid that's getting famous from just allowing snakes and different animals to sting him. And I don't know. He
What?
does it for fun. It's like his addiction, but he's like
Wow.
8
I
years
saw the
old.
skateboarder guy who would do it in order for an adrenaline rush, and he was on Vice like several years ago. I
Yeah, there's
showed
like
him here.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really famous. He's kind of a weirdo, but he's got a YouTube channel, really interesting character. We're
Well,
all characters.
but what we can see there is that they're demonstrating the immunity that happens.
Right.
In fact, that's how we professionally generate antivenoms today. Is I think it's with sheep, right? And we take their blood serum to get the antibodies from them, and then we
Mhm.
package that as a pharmaceutical, but it comes from sheep, right?
Huh.
And so
Well, this is one of the interesting things with the whole idea of Jesus Christ and the lamb imagery, right? The lamb is an antidote to the snake venom.
You should pull up the
Wow.
Theriac
Wow.
article and we can look at it because I love, or at least is that one or the
you talking about this
Pharmacon?
one with Andromachus, or are you talking about the other
Oh, I love
Theriac?
that one, but no, the Theriac one. Just because it goes into, like what are all the snake venoms, what are all these recipes and stuff. And it's really cool that we have this documented
This
because
is
look,
Mythic
there are recipes with 200 ingredients. There's stuff that
Shoot.
doesn't have that much. So it's like, okay, what are people doing? And I love it because Mithridates is the lineage. He's proudly the lineage of Medea, right? And replicating this in his own way, in his own magical form.
Mhm.
And this is just a great resource as well to see what is there that we have documented too. And
I
Yeah,
always
yeah,
love seeing how
from
much
many different
opium.
sources.
he
It's
always puts them up.
ridiculous. Like, because they're not, the amounts that Galen is using is such a huge amount. It's kind of wild.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's also
absolutely.
interesting, like the effect of each of these substances, plants, animal substances, has a spiritual connection, with them in many different cultures. But, I think about, my experience with just being exposed to scopolamine and atropine, right? Just that one plant. Imagine everything else interacting with each other, different reactions. Like what is this that is being replicated? It's very interesting. I don't know. But
It's super interesting. So, taking a tiny step back, venoms seem to be a common element in this ancient medicine, right?
Right.
And you heard the boy on YouTube, or maybe it was the teenager, or the young man. He was a Neonius, right? He was like 20 or something, and I think he was boxing, and he was like, "This makes me stronger." And anecdotal, okay, but he said his grandpa lived to 101 and like never was sick, and like his doctor said his telomeres are like a 29-year-old, but he's 48, and it's like, yeah, anecdotal, and like who knows, like prove it, guy. But
We do have
interesting.
also. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
But it's interesting, and it mirrors like what you hear about the antiquity stuff, and then and it seems like there's medicines that go back to Medea, to Hecate, to even the Amazonians and the Scythian women with the bows and their arrows and their smear in their hair that they rub their arrows on. They shoot the guy and they freeze him, and bam, you got Medusa's archetype after that with the snakes freezing a guy. Same thing, right? And then later you've got Asclepius and the healing traditions. And the Victorians wrote about the snakes on the floors, but don't worry, they're non-venomous. But why the hell would there be snakes on the floors? Why would they write? I've seen carved reliefs
It's for
of
your
the
dream magic.
incubator chamber with a patient laying down with a snake on top of him. Why? Right? So it was symbolic, and the symbolic thing got him healed. No, if you right, that doesn't make any sense. So
well, there is that whole ritual they would do in the Asclepian tradition. After you slept with the snakes, then you had to go perform your dream to the priest, and then they would interpret your dream.
yeah,
So there's a whole kind of ritual aspect
oracular
to it too.
experience.
But there's probably drugs involved. There's probably like it's hard to say what's 100% going on there.
Well, sleep with the snake is another way of not revealing their secrets, right?
Right. But one wild thing I wanted to point out too is like when I was doing the research into the snake venom, I found that in India, the indigenous people are still utilizing the snake venom as an alternative for like hard drugs in order to get high. And it's actually become an epidemic among the extreme poor in some places when they can't get access to other drugs
Yeah,
like
venom
heroin
appears
or
to be a
opium.
powerful drug.
People get it. What they would do is like in this one article I read, I posted it in the Soma library a while back, but these guys would be strapped to the chair, and then the shaman would take the snake and they'd have the snake bite them underneath the tongue, right there in your mouth.
Wow.
Right. And then these people would supposedly they'd have like a trip for 7 days, and the people who would do this, most of them were like people suffering from heroin addiction, and couldn't get access because like this is not the most fun thing in the world.
Well, it sounds like we've got modern corroboration of venoms being psychoactive in some way.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild, and so they've cracked down on it in a big way in India now.
Yeah, they're doing scorpion venom too. Yeah.
They smoked the scorpions whole, but the scorpion thing has become a big deal. So when I was looking into that, did you guys realize that scorpion venom is the most expensive liquid by weight in the world?
Wow.
And there's a whole massive market for collecting it. So it's become a huge deal. They collecting the venoms, it's like a massive black market in India and Pakistan.
Wow.
Real insane stuff.
And what do they use the venoms for? Is it people who know that it's good for medicine?
It's for medicine, yeah. Okay. It's for use in pharmaceuticals.
And why is that a black market as opposed to like a real market? Is it banned in their country?
It's banned in their country, and it's not been fully developed. So part of the reason why is because where these particular animals are living is in war-torn places. And so it's not lucrative, and a lot of these companies, they exploit the degradation of the people there. They like it this way because it can keep the price.
But this is
cheap.
One place where maybe we could learn the pharmacy of those medicines. But
right,
there's text too, I think.
Yeah. There is something kind of wild and special though about that kind of area around Pakistan and India. The Scythians were said to come from there. You also get like Dionysus is said to come from there, the earliest form of Dionysus. It's this massive crossroads where East meets West. It's interesting.
It's super.
But I don't mean to derail. Sorry.
Oh, it's super interesting. It's migration patterns, it's origins, all this stuff. It's really cool.
Right?
It's really cool. And it's man, it's so different if you read a Greek text about the polis and the citizens and the lion fights and stuff like that versus ancient priesthood. Like no one talks about the ancient priesthood. Some people do, but it's rare, right? I mean,
it is rare. We also have to remember is that in Ammon talks, this is one of the things that I love about Ammon. Everyone should go read Original Sin. That's my favorite of his 3 books because he just lays out the genocidal history and the erasure of the pagan, of the LGBT, of the women. Yeah. And we have to take that into context. So much of this has been completely vilified. So when we do see any of it, it's parodied or it's been usurped. Like the Sibyls, they become Christianized, right? The Great Mother becomes the Virgin Mary. They literally take the same iconography of Demeter with the child Plutus and that's just the Mother Mary with Jesus. So it's hard for us to see where one ends and one begins.
And it's funny. It's really disarming, but like she was just a temple priestess. That's why she was a virgin, because she was a Parthenos. Because temple priestesses were Parthenos, right? And that I think that was in the Gynomorph book actually. But yeah, I mean, it makes total sense. You slap your head and you're like, oh, well, that's how a virgin can have a baby. Temple priestess,
right?
Temple priestess is a virgin. So a virgin is a title, right? A Parthenos is a title.
Mary's.
So that titled person over there got pregnant, right? That's what they're saying. They're not calling her a virgin who somehow gave an immaculate birth, and that they just confuse things because like men are stupid.
Right. And it's all the twisting of earlier stories, right? If people study you study the foundational myths of Rome, and what do you got at the foundational myth of Rome? Rhea Silvia, a temple priestess who gives birth to magical twins, who then go on to do what? One of them dies and then one of them is elevated and then is able to found the city. It's like, this is a magical kind of trope, and you can see the parallels later on in Christianity, because Christianity usurped Roman religion. It just took it wholesale, right? And the main Roman religion at the time of Christianity was the Great Mother Cult. Emperor Julian lays it all out for us. He's such a great source for this. Reading his letters to the Galileans, hymn to the Mother of Gods, and the hymn to King Helios, he just lays it out flat for you. Christians are stealing our rights and our mystery. I have to reveal it, because if I don't reveal it, then it's going to be lost,
Yeah, absolutely.
We should get into Medea, actually, since she is the center focus of all of this work in many ways, the mother goddess herself, right?
Yeah. And I know we call her the first Christ, or by we, Dr. Hillman, right, has said that on many occasions. And I think you could probably find women before her, but I think it's very fitting just to kind of frame everything. Because for the Greek world, right, you saw Medusa on everything. It was like a brand, right? It was like seeing Nike on everything.
It was a protection symbol, right?
KFC, and you saw Medea on everything. Yeah, maybe a protection symbol, right? But what, snakes in the hair, like venom medicine is a savior, like, and you put this on everything, and it's like, yeah, venom's cure, and so they put this protection symbol on you because it cures, right? And like when I was at Eleusis, I visited there earlier this year. They had two statues, and they had the protection Medea, not Medea, but Medusas on their chests, right? And then they also had, of course, the torches, right? Which I think you see Medea and Hecate, and I think Ceres, and it's a torchbearer icon. Basically.
Anyone with Phoebus or Phoebe, all of those light bearers got it.
Apollo,
Selene, all of them. Diana, Artemis.
And so the torchbearer, that's like your modern psychotherapist laying on, sitting in the chair, watching you with your blindfold on, sitting in the bed, guiding you through, 10-hour LSD journey, or a 6-hour mushroom journey, or maybe the ayahuasca shaman sitting there and he's guiding you, right? But that's the torchbearer. They're guiding you, right? Yep. And I'm sure it's different in the Hellenistic, flora and fauna, because they've got hymns and psalms and rites and, fumigations and like other set and setting things with the kithara and the lyre, right? And the guitar players and everything, right? So it's just fascinating.
It's so fascinating. It's so beautiful. One of my favorite things is when you look at Eleusis and you see Hecate as the virgin holding the two torches. And this is one of her oldest iconographic symbols that we still have of her. And she's there leading all of the initiates across the Eleusinian Way. I mean, was she still there when you went, or had they moved her into a museum?
I saw two giant torches, but I didn't see anybody holding those. Okay. And so there might have been another thing that you're talking about that I did not see. What they had was a museum.
can find it online. It's a really famous statue.
Oh,
Hecate
great.
with the two torches.
They had like at the top of the hill, they had a little museum, and it was cool. It was well done. There's a lot of stuff in there.
But we have a really good question here that I want to pose to you
Oh,
guys that's being asked, and it's one that we should unpack, and it's asking, what is a virgin? And is a virgin just a woman who hasn't given birth yet? And I think we really do need to unpack this in the Greek sense. Do you guys have an article on virginity, or?
I think we have a Parthenos. Yeah.
Parthenos.
Yeah.
Because it's really about the coming of age into the ripeness of spring, right?
Yeah.
Someone
she's
fertile. Okay.
Yeah, it's a female who's fertile who hasn't had a child. It's a female in the bloom of life.
Yeah.
Right. It's that Kore, it's that maiden, it's that oracular priestess.
But the virginity is really that spark of the blossom when the child enters into puberty, and it's that magical time for a couple years when you're at your height. But it's also understood, right? Like when we're talking about the virgin priestesses, most of the time, these were children who were given to the temples as children, and then only the most perfect of those children are then chosen for special training, which would culminate when they had achieved puberty. And then from their then when they were at that age, they would be an oracular divinatory person for several years until, I can't remember the age. Ammon went through it in a recent
They become old, and then they teach the other younger girls in their
it's the first.
Exactly.
It's supposed to be like 10-year.
Yeah,
cycle,
10 year. Thank you. It's 10-year cycles. You're 10 years
like
as an oracle. Yeah, 10 years as a teacher. And then when you turn 30, the women would return to secular life and would get married and would become empowered women within the community. Usually they were community leaders or power behind the throne, advising their husbands or other people. But especially in Rome with the Vesta virgins, we see this, and it's well documented.
So one other really important part is it sounds like they have a system of democracy based on the Parthenos, because they couldn't trust older people, with money issues and greed and all these things, right? They figured the only innocence was the female in the bloom of life. Basically, if we want to know whether we should go to war or not, we should ask this person, because they're not corrupted yet. Right? And if they're not corrupted, they're going to give us an honest answer of whether we should go to war or whether or not I should hang that man for his crime. Right? And so female power, guys, female power, women.
Yeah. It's also wild too, because there's even later sources that talk about, like, specifically at Delphi or near before it ended, they were getting raided so often by pirates. They actually stopped the virgin rites for several years and brought in a crone, and then it got destroyed by the Christians. But like, because people just kept coming in, after when paganism stopped being so important, no one was protecting them anymore, and they just kept getting raided until it was torn down.
So were they still running after it was made illegal?
They ran for, I'm not too sure. I'd have to go look at the exact sources, but I know that they were officially sanctioned and forced to close down at a specific point.
Yeah, it was like 391 where they made everything illegal, right?
Exactly. And so they went to them and they shut it down. But there was there's several years there where they're kind of operating in shady. And they
did some Fahrenheit 451 book burnings and everything.
Exactly. Right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like Handmaid's Tale a little bit, right?
Total Handmaid's Tale. Right. And it's hard for us to imagine the kind of cultural genocide that was underway. Right. Yeah. Like a complete erasure of the traditional mythopoetic system and it being replaced with Christianity, But
this whole Parthenos thing is a head slapper for Virgin Mary. It takes away the supernatural fairy tale back alleyness of it. And it really tells you what was going on. It's like, her and her cousin Elizabeth, sister Elizabeth, were both temple priestesses, Parthenos, and Elizabeth had John the Baptist first. And then I want to say it was like 6 months later. I don't know. It was a year later or something.
Yeah,
Then Jesus
6
was
months.
born.
Yeah.
That was at 6 months, and then the dancing babies in the bellies, right?
You know,
The dancing
it also just
babies.
it also just parallels so much what we see in earlier sources and earlier texts. Like you had brought up, like the priestesses were prostitutes and they generated money for the temple. This is
But
what
they
they
didn't call
did.
them prostitutes. That was
No,
just
but
part of their services.
that was part of their. But my point, yeah, you're right. They didn't call them that. That was a holy sacred service. It was part
Right.
of the rites. Like we see this in Lucian's
Yeah.
what's that called? The Syrian
And
the
so this is a
Syrian
difficult topic, just like
goddess.
slavery is, right? It's hard to imagine
Mm,
200 years ago people had slaves and they're good people, right?
right.
But here's people 2,000 years ago and they're selling their sex. And today we look at that with judgment, but back then it was sacred and they're getting a result from these people.
Right.
Somehow,
And we see this like in the
Doesn't
Syrian
feel like a
goddess. What's
democratic
so
time.
wild is like the women who wouldn't give themselves freely to strangers then had to shave their heads. You know, it was one
yeah,
or the other.
I remember
You
that
know,
story, yeah.
and this is
That
part
one
of the
was great.
wildness there. But like,
Wow.
you know, and it's just we see just so many similarities and so many parallels. Like this stuff is like when we look at Rhea Silvia, right? Again, with the foundation of Rome. She bankrolls the founding of Rome because she's a wealthy woman, because she made all this money from selling herself. And they literally sell it. The wolf founds Rome and gives the initial money to set up the building of it. You know, where does she get all that money from?
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
I love that story of Numa and Angeria too.
Right?
So
Yeah,
cool.
that's such a classic one.
Yeah.
You know, and then but like even when we look at the Bible too, right? Like there's there's Mary, and then there's the mother of the twins, James and John. What's her name? Mary. She has another title, but she's like some kind of gang leader, prostitute lady, connected with the temple. She's got money. She's bankrolling all these young fishermen. There's some weird, shady stuff going on. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, there is. So one thing I wanted to close out on the whole Virgin Parthenos thing. I wanted to get your take on all of this. You know, people give some criticism to Lady Babylon and to Dr. Hillman for even mentioning children and some of the things that they're using them for 2,000, 3,000 years ago, right? And I've had some questions and I haven't really had a great answer because I don't know myself and I haven't dug that far to understand. But I've had questions where people say, "Hey, the little boy with Jesus, that sounds wicked. That sounds horrible." Okay, book shut, right? And then Parthenos priestess, the female version. Well, is that just as bad, or is that somehow different, right? And there's a question there. Like my answer was there might be something bad there in today's morals and laws that we would not be able to allow or want to allow. It would just be bad for us. But back then, there still might be a nugget that's kind of odd, right? But this woman has power. This woman is educated. This woman becomes, I think, a free woman after she does her tenure here. This woman calls the shots in democracy.
I think that we have to look at it as anthropologists, and we have to approach this as a legitimate human culture that existed within its own cultural framework.
Right.
And so we
Like
can be critical of a culture, but we have to understand it within its own mores at the same time. So I think that, like, when I look at, for example, you know, the Parthenos and the girl rights, right? Like, these women are educated, they are celebrated, they are empowered, they are priestesses. The children are offered to the temple. Like, it's not something that we would necessarily like, but we can see parallels in many other cultures. Like in Buddhist cultures, people still offer their children to the temples and
Yeah, they
expect them
do.
to grow up and be virgins and live within that for their whole life, you
Yeah,
know? And then the use of entheogens in medicine, again, like this is all so culturally
yeah,
dependent. What is a medicine? What is healing magic? What is a ritual? So I think we really have to be in that anthropological perspective. Like, I'm not saying that you
you're
can't
right.
be critical about this as an individual, but we have to understand that this is ancient Greek culture. And we're not talking about revitalizing
We're
this. No
not.
one is talking about
No,
bringing it back as it was. And this is the key. We
that's
can
a
look at
key.
this and we can understand it. But I think it's also important to see that what we see with these rites, with the priestesses, is we see a mother-child rite. We see something that's kept within the magical feminine tradition, and it has this very ancient root. Where what happens later on is a piratic. It's magic that's about dominating and
You're right.
abducting the other.
It got
This is not
corrupted.
a mother and a child engaging in a loving education, right? Trying to see the future, trying to help their community. Now we're seeing a dominating master exploiting a child for their own personal gain,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you can
this,
see that
I
in
like,
so many texts that we've explored previously, right? Of, people taking things too far, you know. But
yeah,
the way that it
And it's
was established was for a force of healing and for a force of justice, right? And somehow they protected and um, allowed that blossoming to be innocent and flourish. And when it became inverted is when, and corrupted and, you know, uh, unprotected is when things kind of went haywire, right?
absolutely, when you take it out of that priestess kind of thing is when you get the magic texts. And this is something that I want to point out, right? Like these virgin rites continuously happen across the magical text. Like you can go to the earliest magical texts we have, like the PGM and the PDM, all the way up until modern texts, like that one I showed you guys on Witches Symposium from the 1890s, where they were still doing it in Alexandria. And they're using boys, they're getting them drugged by suffumigation and by putting stuff in their eyes, and then they're getting them to divine through liquid or
yeah,
flame, right? Like this is something that it's not just the Christians, right? It's the pagans it's the Christians, and then it even continues into the modern times, right?
yeah.
It's the Muslims too, it's the Jewish people too, right? Like everyone's doing it.
And this is where I'll say we don't condone that. We don't
No.
support it. We're not saying we need to bring it back. We're not saying that they're wonderful, but I think, Snappy, to your point, you have to view them in the lens of the time period. If you're going to time travel there and understand them, you have to, and this is wearing your academic hat, right? You're wearing your like, I'm gonna know and I'm gonna understand hat, right? And that doesn't mean we're celebrating. That means that we're understanding. So let's
Right.
understand why they're doing this and what they found virtuous about it. And maybe there was things that weren't virtuous as well. And like, let's understand all of it, right? So, yeah,
Absolutely. And
that's
we also got to point out too, like we're talking and approaching this from a Hellenic pagan perspective. And Hellenic paganism, there is no orthodoxy, there is no heterodoxy, there is no
there's
overarching
nature.
belief of any kind other than traditional texts that we share in a language that we share. So we all get to make up our own opinions on this. And
Yeah.
just because we practice the same traditions doesn't mean we accept everything. Doesn't mean we can't throw things out that we no longer like. Doesn't mean
Well,
we can't
you see that in the
reform
Hellenic
our
text
own
too.
ideas.
Not everybody was in agreement either, and there's different
No,
perspectives and different
no.
ways that people talk about the same thing. And right, that's the joy of reading these things, is you start to dig for clues and evidence, and you're like, oh, this guy, he didn't have ears to hear, but this guy seems to know what he's talking about, right?
You think the Artemis priest? You think the priestesses of Artemis are walking across the street to go worship Zeus? No, no. They're doing their own things. Everyone's
Yeah.
involved in they got their own thing. They got their
Profit
own
wars.
muse. They're following their own path. They're loosely connected and they respect each other,
Sure.
but it's loose,
It's profit wars.
right? And this is how it should be, right? Like orthodoxy and heterodoxy are far more a result of modern Abrahamic and religions, and more about religions of control, religions of state.
Control. They
Well,
just
that's
want to
what you
control the
saw.
narrative.
That's what you saw from 100 to 400. There it was just a bunch of political maneuvering, and here's what's in and out of our book. Let's have a council and vote on it, right? Type of stuff. Oh, this is now canon, and this is now apocryphal, right? That's what they were doing, right? They're consolidating. Oh, this is messy. This system of government with 100 different temple types in our city. Let's have one temple type where we have all the authority, right? That's what they did.
Yeah, right. This is one of the things, like it's like when you look at it from a historical capitalist perspective, it all starts to make way too much sense, you know? What does Christianity give the Roman Empire? You have pagan universalism combined with Jewish exceptionalism. I can have my cake and eat it too. I can alienate anyone I want and accept anyone I want. Everything is outside and everything is in. It's
Isn't that
the
fascinating?
ultimate play, you know? It just allows you to just take and rape whoever you want.
Yeah. Villain, victim, salvationist doctrine, right?
Exactly. Right. And it's all founded on you submit to my perspective and to my authority, or you are doomed, you know? And it just gets so ridiculous too. Right. Like I remember in my university when at one point studying the Christian crusades of Scandinavia and the adoption of Christianity in Scandinavia. And it took a ridiculously long time. We actually have a statue of Jesus Christ, the spear chucker. That's what it says on him. Because it's a combination of Jesus and Thor. Because the people there looked at Jesus and they went, "No, this is a weak willing. It's not our culture. No, we want Thor."
Wow.
So
Yeah.
how did the Catholics sell this to the Norse? They amalgamated them together, you know, and they did it over generation.
Hey,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to call it a night, guys. It's
Yeah, it
getting
is
kind of
getting
late
late.
over here.
All right.
Hey,
But yeah, this was great.
love you, Cruz.
This is great.
Can we
All right.
talk about the glossary sub?
Sure.
Cool.
Great to see you,
Good night,
Cruz.
everyone.
Thank you so much.
All right,
Much
hail,
love.
hail
Boy.
Satan, hail Satan.
You're talking about
Take
the
care.
Orphic Fox glossary or the STR
Hail
one?
Satan.
The Orphic Fox.
Yeah, so this could be a little better organized, but we've been dumping in the eyes to see, ears to hear euphemisms into here, right? What is an antichrist? What's a basilica? What's a bed? What's burn off their mortality? What's a centaur? What's a Christ? What's a cup of Pornea? Why don't you talk through this a little bit? I want to hear what you think.
Okay. I like it. It's at the very end of the Soma library, at the bottom. And it's great for anybody that's like just new and doesn't understand all the lingo when watching, especially if you're like, hey, you have never even heard of this stuff or know anything about ancient Greek language or any sort of myths like me. I wasn't exposed to anything, in growing up at all. So a lot of the stories and stuff have been really foreign to me. But having kind of building this glossary of some of the words and their encoded meaning, some of the things that we could expand more on that lead to other articles that we've talked about. I like referring to it sometimes. Sub wrote some really good descriptions, like at the very top where he talks about ion, and
Oh, that's a great one we should unpack because that's
yeah.
such a
So
important
what is the ion? Yeah. Do you
Who
want
wants
to talk
take
about it, Sub?
Who wants to take a crack?
Oh,
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
okay.
there's the ion and there's ionic life, right?
Yeah.
And life, it's the nuanced word. It's Zoe, right? Um, Zoe is a more profound form. It's like an animated life force, right? It's a little different than, yeah, I'm just sitting in my backyard drinking a soda or something. My life in my backyard, right? It's like this animated life force, and it's this ion outside of time, this timeless or divine dimension of consciousness, right? And Dr. Hillman described it really interesting, where he said, yeah, it's that feeling you get when you're at the grocery store and you look across the store and you see this beautiful person and you imagine your entire life with that person. And all of a sudden you realize you've been staring for 5 minutes and you just lost track of time, right? And it's, the same thing. And it's this ionic life, it's this like timelessness, but also, they're using pharmacon and they're using death-inducing drugs and they're using viper venoms. And so they're getting an induced effect that helps them achieve that sort of thing.
We're also getting into so much of like Greek cosmology when we get into the ion, because it's so important to talk about the ion from the Orphic perspective, right? As the god of, like, the ion is the first created thing that comes out of Nyx, out of night, right? It's also equated with cosmogonic Eros, with Phanes, and of course with Metis. There are many different names that we see, Erechpeus, but it's this idea, right, that it, there you got the ion standing inside of the zodiac. And again, it also connects to the Orphic Chronos, because the ion is divided by that Saturnian power, right? At the crossroads, he's split and he becomes the unfolding of all creation, right? So that gadfly causes this split from that primordial one into the descending of all forms. And so much of our, the cycles of life are about us realizing that we're this ion, Eros, Dionysus, and returning back to that cycle. This is the cycle of death and rebirth. The one becomes many in order to know itself, and in order to you go through that descent to then return to the womb. And entering into that wholeness allows you to then experience time from that greater perspective. You can reach the mother. We see this like in the Hymn to the Mother of Gods by Julian,
Yeah. So it's interesting digging into the lexicons to translate something like John 3:16, which a lot of people hold up as, hey, if Jesus takes my sins, I'll have eternal life forever. And so I'm just going to be born again, right? Like, not so fast, because it's Ionian and it's not adiotic life, right? So if you look
right.
If you look down here, Plotinus tells us Ionian is not the same as Adion.
And this stuff was so mind-blowing to me when I first started to get into it, because then you recognize, wait, you're telling me that the great mother, Demeter, has the child to come, Plutus, Harpocrates. It's a virgin birth, and that this is what the cycles rest upon. The Cori gets abducted, and then she is reborn as the child to come, and this is the death and the rebirth, the descent and the rise. When you start to see this, and then you look at Christianity, I'm like, it's just completely bloody lifted. It's completely bloody lifted and dumbed down.
Well, when you get into Mark, right? We touched on this briefly before, but yeah, before the Gethsemane scene, you see Jesus in anguish and ecstasy, right? He's taking something. Something's going on, right? And then he gets arrested. He's on the cross. He's got symptoms of thirst. Why do they keep talking about thirst? He's thirsty. He's screaming he's thirsty, and they're giving him a sponge with medical vinegar on it, which, okay, interesting, but that's a therapy for dipsass poisoning, which incidentally, dipsass means thirst, and they're using the word dipsass all over the crucifixion scene. So dipsass has a viper. It's a thirst viper, but it also has, thirst. I can be thirsty, so I could be dipsass as well. right? And then yeah, they poke him with a sword and bloody water comes out, which one of the symptoms of dipsass viper venom poisoning is extreme thirst. And we see this
Swelling, yeah.
in Nicander's work. It's either the Alexei Pharmaca or the Theriac. I'm not sure which one at this point, but I'm sure Dr. Hillman's like rolling his eyes. But but yeah, it's over there in Nicander land, and you can read about it. And he's talking about how your belly button will burst or whatever, right? If you drink too much water. And here's Jesus with water pouring out of his belly, complaining of thirst the entire time. And you're like, okay, weird. And they go to break his legs. He's already passed out, right? No, they said he's not breathing. And so everybody assumes he's dead, which, okay, maybe he's just as good as dead, but he's the first one. Why would this guy pass? Well, yeah, he's complaining of thirst. He has all these problems. He's clearly going through something, right? And they're giving you all the clues, right? And yeah. So then they take him down, they bandage him up, and they use the fine grade surgical linen bandage stuff, and they put him, I think they dig a hole into the rocks, and then they make when we were in Turkey, we saw these rock caves underground, and they had these big, I don't know if it was granite, but like these big like donut shaped like rolling rocks that they could roll in front of the openings and basically block it off to attackers, right? And so it sounds like they also had a rolling stone that kind of like,
it's a door.
It's a door. They made a door, and that's how they made doors when they carved into the rocks. In Cappadocia and Turkey, you see these things everywhere, right? And so I guess they weren't in Cappadocia, but those same people I think migrated up there because there's a ton of Christian settlements in those rocks too, up in Cappadocia. So anyway, go figure. So yeah, super interesting. And then catharsis chamber. It's like a mirror image to the PGM, right? PGM has prepare a pure room, right? And Asclepian healing chambers. You're incubating with the snakes, right?
Right.
Really interesting.
Incubating with the snakes. And if we look at like the Mithras liturgy, you have you have the master and the slave. You have that whole flipping of the poles, doing this magical rite where one is empowered and the other is not, and then they flip positions. And to me, when I look at all this too, like if we take again Julian's word for it, and that source that Ammon showed me is still my favorite source ever, Hymn to the Mother of Gods, Emperor Julian. And it just walks you through the whole thing, and you see so many of it. You see so many parallels. Attis in that story is in the cave of the nymphs. He's bound in the nymphs, bound in his own greed and desire, right? And we even see like Telesphorus is this little dwarf god who's often representative of this kind of sexual desire, and he stands in for the Neoniskos in some of these stories, okay? So you have even the guy in the cave with the nymph, with the boy, right? And what does he have to do? He has to invoke madness. He has to take the drug as Helios, right? Helios comes, causes Attis to go mad, and then he leaves the cave, he castrates himself, and what does he do? He rides the beast like Medea, and rides it, imitating the mother, going through a transition, becomes like her in a sense to the stars. What do we see? Jesus is going through this transition, right, in order to become a god, in order to exit time, to die and be reborn. He's doing the same thing. He goes into the cave of the nymphs. He rejects the boy, and then he ascends on the cross.
Yeah. And why did they write this in encoded language? Well, look what happened when the mystery in the sacrament formula got out. All hell broke loose and they had a coup.
Right.
Yeah. So this is why they encoded all this stuff and made it hard for us to read too.
There's real power and real magic here. Who controls the oracles also controls can be the king, can do everything. Like we see this, for example, in Aristophanes' birds, right? This is one of the perfect examples when we're talking about the Solomonic magic, because they just lay it out, right? The trusty friend, Piscatorus, realizes he's told by Prometheus, if he can get Hera from Zeus and marry her, then he can become the next Zeus. because that's where all Zeus's power lies. It's with Hera. It's not his,
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
And they and ends through the prayers, right? But they steal the prayers through the power of birds, and then they steal his magic by taking the divine feminine, you know.
Yeah.
And this is the trick. So these rites allow you to gain that divinatory knowledge, which you can see outside of time, and then empower yourself and create these empires, you know?
Yeah, that's fascinating.
What
It's
do you
really
think, man?
fascinating. If you're really nerding out about empire building, this is all fascinating,
Right?
right? Because it's all
It's
empire
so
building. Like this ancient priesthood got together and they're like, well, what's going to create a stable civilization that the tyrants won't corrupt and take it off the rails in, 100 years,
right.
right?
This is why the biography of Numa is such a great source for understanding this, because that's exactly what Numa is doing. He's creating the foundation for the city. He's building their national religion and their legal framework. And how does he do it? Entirely through the muse, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Entirely through the muse, right? So that's the foundation that then becomes Rome, upon which Rome is based, you know? And we're
Yeah.
seeing the same things in these rites. It's all about creating this empire magic in order to empower yourself, right? So that you can generate wealth and control across lineage. It's wild.
I feel like this is the deadest horse of them all, the Neoniskos one.
Yeah,
But
we should.
there is such a breakdown. I mean, it's like Epiphanius Phanarian. It's like beaten to death, where like if you just want to read about why Neoniskos is a younger person, it's here. It's
You know,
here.
some of these semantic debates are just so frustrating, but I'm glad that you guys are doing it, because this is where the brothel really comes in and tries to poke
They do.
at the research that Dr. Hillman has done and that the community has done, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even Philo of Alexandria, the 7 stages of life, has the Neoniskos as a pubertal to a teen, right? And yeah, it's not 7-year increments. Like that's a misreading of that one, right? It's 7 stages of life, right?
Right.
Each stage might be different length and whatever, but there's 7 stages. There's 7 divisions. So
You know, I brought it up before, but like when we look at the magic, if we accept that there is a magical rite being performed, right, within Mark, within that rite with the Neoniskos, if we accept that, if then we have to accept that it's a virgin, because if we look at the similar rites across the magical tradition, it's always a virgin child. It's a virgin child in the PDM and the PGM, and then it becomes a virgin boy in all of the Christian texts that follow, and there are many of them, and also in the Islamic tradition and the Jewish tradition. All these black magic grimoires doing the same thing. They're taking these young kids, these young virgin boys, they're suffumigating them with tons of cannabis and other types of things like frankincense, and then they're having them look into a basin, right, to either a flame lamp or into water with oil to try and divine.
Yeah, uncorrupted vessel, right? And it's
Right?
like
It's
it's
always
so
a virgin.
frustrating
It's never
because
an adult.
there's so much there. There's so much that you can find for such an expansive time throughout many texts of that talk about using that uncorrupted vessel, and even like really gruesome stuff like I showed you in the witches symposium where they're like literally you know, cutting them open and doing divination through their entrails and stuff like that. That's just like, oh,
Yep.
and you say there's no ritual boys. Okay, let's just look at what texts say then. So
it
Well,
seems to be all over the place, and ritual boys, ritual girls, ritual everything.
I
yeah,
showed you guys, remember in our witches symposium, I showed you in the PDM, which is the Egyptian magical papyri of London. We had the collection 14. They had a young boy naked, wrapped in linen, who was suffumigated with frankincense and divined through looking at oil and water. Then we saw the same thing in the PGM with the spell to Helios. You guys actually have that one here. You were showing it to me earlier, Sub.
Yeah.
And then we can also see, though, in modern grimoires, I showed you guys in the discovery of witchcraft, which is from the 17th century in England. Virgin boys, in order to what? Summon the fairy queen Sibylla, the Sibyl, right? Weird stuff going on there. And then I showed you that German grimoire, the CLM manuscript, that also they're trying to view the image in the thumbnail. They're trying to make the boy see spirits in his thumbnail, but again, they're suffumigating him, and he has to be an uncorrupted virgin boy, and they're wrapping him in white linen again.
Yeah. And again, we don't condone this stuff.
No,
we don't even admire it.
We don't admire it
It's
at all.
super interesting because it tells you what the hell they're doing.
Right? We're just pointing out, like, Jesus is operating within a magical tradition that remains consistent across time. So, I don't even need to debate about what he's doing. I just look before and after and around. Like,
So-
this is what they're doing.
So bottom line, Jesus, and Dr. Hillman will say this, Jesus was stealing a previous tradition.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even the first one making it a male rite. I mean, you have some evidence with the Heracles. You have the Asclepian rite, which Heracles and Asclepius, I think, were heroes in the same group together somehow, both taught by Chiron, the centaur, right? In healing. So like centaurs are like teachers. They're not like this mythical beast, basically. But you can read about this stuff mythographized, right? And so think of the texts that were missing. Think of, hey, they had to encode this stuff. Anyway, so the centaur was educating these guys in medicine and all the arts, right? And so then you get Asclepius, and you get 300 to 400 healing centers. These are hospitals across the ancient Greco-Roman world. And then they all get shut down all at once at 391 CE when they make paganism illegal. So no more hospitals, guys.
So it's just so wild, and it's so insane, and a lot of people saw the end of history coming, and the pagan Romans and the Greeks were writing about it.
Mm-hmm.
People saw Christianity for what it was, but we now take that to be polemic, and we ignore it.
It has Hellenic roots. Look at the Sibyls on the ceiling of the Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel. Right. There's Sibyls in there. These are oracles. The oracles basically, I mean, they wrote it. The Christians wrote it, so the oracles did say it, right? But they basically prophesized Jesus. And so if you want to create a new religion, we'll crush the old religion. Don't come up with something new. Come up with something that builds on the previous truth. Because Absolutely. Your thing is just as true as the previous thing if you build on it. And yours is more true because you say so, right? But you've got all this legitimacy stuff behind your thing so that people can't argue with you. And that's what they did. They had the Sibyls back it up, right?
Yep. And, they do that classical monism thing where they reduce everything to one. Your gods are nothing more than images of my God. Any of your magic that you had was a lie. So we're now going to turn your gods into saints, right. Or we're going to just incorporate them into ours. Yours will be the Virgin Mary, or it will be Jesus, or it'll be the Holy Ghost. But you're not allowed to have your own. Anything that you had is actually ours. Yeah.
Catholicism is famous for being syncretic and bringing in all that stuff too.
Exactly. We see this on full display.
Yeah.
But this is also one of it's that universalizing thing that empire tends to do, right? You got to have you got to have this incredible positivity and love and hope to offer people, but it can't be anything real, and you got to hide, like, because what Catholicism does is it steals what a lot of religion does is it steals people's true spirituality and it turns it decrepit. It empowers it within a system of control, right? It takes the spiritual people and isolates them and redirects them and takes their magic away from them,
Yeah. Well, and the ancient Greeks, for much of their time or all of their time, really tried to orient themselves to nature.
Yeah.
To what was...
Well, it is an animist philosophy. Like all of this
And it
Their
just
religion
doesn't,
is animist,
and it
you know?
doesn't necessarily mean little soft bunnies and trees and hugging the trees all the time.
No, no,
No,
no.
no, it's they oriented themselves to what was apparent in nature. Things like knowledge, justice, truth, liberty, all of these things. Even justice was a part of nature, right? Eros is a part of nature. And so like let's give names to all of these parts of nature and like personify them so we can tell our kids about them and get everybody to learn about it. And so like that's the biggest discrepancy I see between Christianity and Hellenic religion. Christianity is like this blind faith trust thing without any proof, right? And it's like, hey, well, why would you believe in 100 gods if you can just believe in our one true God? It's like, it's not even about belief because it's about nature.
Right.
In nature,
It's
you don't
about
have to believe.
experience.
In nature, you can look at, you can understand, rationalize. Nature is nature, and nature is everything in the cosmos and the universe, right? So they're not making up shit when they are worshiping nature. They like reality just the way it is.
Yep. And this is the thing, when they create an eidolon, that is the god. That
Right.
is, they've manifested beauty upon the earth, right?
Right.
And like we've lost so much of our connection to the classics, and we've kind of dismissed and undermined so much of the Hellenic philosophy. Like, for example, like we're talking about life and generation. The god of life and generation is Dionysus, right? Life and death united in a single force. But that's not how people in modernity understand Dionysus. He's the god of grapes and wine. And
Yeah.
like the wine is about the ecstasy of life and death. It's about that profound experience of being, right? Like this is the wine is just a part of it. He's the god of experience, of all drugs, of all life and death.
A lot of
You
this,
know?
a lot of this stuff
Beautifully
been
said.
kind of buried or hidden, right?
Right.
Where modern pagans, modern witches, modern whatever they don't have all the information.
No, it's been hidden and it's been obscured. You know, one that Dr. Ammon brings up all the time is Hecate, right? In what source classically is she ever seen as a crone? Where did this come from? Right? But she's always in the New Age witchcraft scene seen as the elder mother. Now, I'm not dismissing the elder mother. That's a beautiful image, but that's not Hecate. It's nothing to do with Hecate is the virgin with the two torches. You know,
Didn't
she's the
Apollodorus
queen of
family
freaking
tree?
Colchis. She's Iphigenia. Like we got sources that tell us who she is. You know,
Didn't Apollodorus write the family tree? And she was like definitely older than Medea, so maybe that's where they get it.
it's you know it's hard to say. I think a lot of it has to do with just wanting to take modern ideas of pagan revival philosophy and apply it cross-culturally. You know, they look at, a lot of this comes from Wiccan conceptions of the moon goddess, and then they go, well, you guys have a three-faced moon goddess too. So obviously it's going through the three phases of life. But the Greeks don't talk about three phases of life. I can only think of like a couple of old women characters in any of the Greek, like they're the Greyons, those ones who share the single eye. You know, they're in the Heracles movie by Disney. But like they're the only ones I can even think of. Like, do
Yeah.
you guys know any old lady gods in Greek? You know, I don't know.
I don't know.
All the gods are depicted as young and youthful virgins, teenagers, always, right?
So what we're seeing with that, I don't know what you call it, archetype borrowing or whatever you call that with the modern Wiccan kind of stuff. Like, did we also see that in the Hellenic days where they would, take Ceres as a representation of maybe Medea, or I don't know. Like, it seemed like there was no internet back then, so like different towns had different ones, and they had, different archetypes kind of matched each other between different towns as well, right?
Well, so many of this is like I've talked about this with Maddie a lot, right? Like we see that the Great Mother wears an infinite number of faces and an infinite number of names, and her story is told in an infinite number of ways, right? Like the most primal example would be Demeter and the Kori, But if you read the story of Medea, it is the story of the Corey. You know, if you read the story of like you see these
Right.
the same ideas repeated in they're different, but they're the same, you
Right.
know?
Over and over. Well, that's where nature always wins, because you can erase all of this and then you can rederive it again.
Right? That's a good
Mm.
Because
point.
Yeah.
because you can just look at nature and you know what it is. Sorry.
Right? It's a song of the birds. It's that which is understood and heard, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Right? The myths are primordial, you know? They'll reappear in a different color, in a different shade, but with the same essence,
So
you
I know
know?
Madalena has a thought about this.
Mm.
I interrupted you.
Oh no, I was just agreeing. A different mass as before, so after. You know, it never ceases to end.
Yeah.
But we're coming up, guys, here to about 2 hours. It is quite late for me. Do we have any final articles we want to get into, or anything we want to
Well,
get into as we start to wind down?
I want to talk about just like the site itself, like what everything that's in there. You know, we have transcriptions of the podcast. We have some of the Almond used. I'm a project that I'm working on is the selections of the Sybil, which obviously got pushed to the back burner for a while. But I want to do all of those as a solid foundation so everyone can just look at everything and have all the links straight to the sources. And it's just straight up, and build from there. And we've talked about making several projects stemming off of that, but we'll get there eventually. And there are just other tools that are also in the Soma library to learn ancient Greek, which if you want to go to that sub, there's all of the resources. Look, like everything from the intensive course, ion study guides, fish, different drills. I do still have like some of those quizzes, because those are really helpful when I was trying to like
Down
learn dip
here,
You
songs.
guys
And
do, because Sonia was just going through them and she really liked
nice,
them.
those were really great, and I was pleasantly surprised to do them while I'm like in the morning when I'm groggy. I'm like, oh, 5 a.m. Let's work through how these diphthongs sound. And you know there's a lot of tools here, and I think once you fully utilize it, because people are like, okay, maybe these are just transcriptions. I've heard people say, I don't want just like word for word stuff. We try to go way deeper to link everything, and include some of those really important nuggets of wisdom as well, and like you know connecting everybody that's involved in their work, and tracing it back to, yeah, like see different tidbits and different episodes and stuff like that. So um like the search
Alpha for
function is my
Alpha.
favorite tool, and I use it like every day. It's like you can scan a page for a word, you can scan the whole library for a word, and you can see every single thing that every time it was used of what we have embedded into the site, which is awesome because it's like, oh, how many times have you said this? Which I do that also just using a search function in YouTube as well. But it's nice to see it laid out, especially because I'm a very visual um, memory person. It's cool. I think that people will be able to understand these concepts easier seeing it all laid out, and bringing that the satanic initiation right into a consolidated, like, readable format where you can listen while you are reading it, so you're not missing some of the stuff that Amin is saying, that that it would take like me like 4 times listening to an episode to catch. It's just been a very helpful tool that we are building for this collective, for the world, for you know people that are really interested in studying. And also to like show, hey, this guy, he's not a kook. The stuff that he's saying is wild. His dramatics are his art. It's like, but everything he's saying, we're keeping him accountable. And that's like my favorite part about the library is like, okay, we want to know if it's true for ourselves. This is our devotion to figuring out if it's true for ourselves. And we are devoted to bringing that link, literally a link embedded in it to see and read and be exposed to the Greek. And then it's like when you're exposed to it, your entire framework of your brain changes, your entire viewpoint. Like I don't know. There are so many different rabbit holes, not just like with the controversial stuff because that's something, but there's just so much.
There's
Yeah,
just
love.
so
Shut
much
up,
here, right? Yeah, if you're at all interested in classics, Hellenism, or mythology in general, philosophy in general, there's just so much wild ideas here, right? Right. Ammon talks about everything, and you guys have connected so much, and you make it so. I just love just going through and scrolling and just like, okay, yeah, yeah, what's this? And then you just
And
find
it's
yourself clicking hyperlinks and just getting lost,
yeah,
you
and
know?
it's awesome for like, okay, you start your own rabbit hole. Let's see how we can add on to it. And
Right.
but it's also perfect because many people come from many backgrounds with many questions. And if you don't know something, you don't have to worry about trying to spend hours looking for it. If you can just plug in a word and a article comes up where it's an episode and you can send it to them. That's been like the greatest thing that we've been able to do. Like, hey, what do texts say about this? Here, why don't you read this? Like this lady came to me. She's like one of these rose priestesses, right? And she's like, I am a winemaker and I'm deeply connected to Dionysus. Like, please, can you help me find like the most ancient roots of wine and tell me more about wine? And I'm like, oh, if you want to, how deep do you want to go with wine? Like, do you want me to send you Philuminus, or do you want me to send like to pull up the Odyssey where daughter of Zeus drugs the cup, and I don't know. There's just so many people that are curious and don't know where to start. And this site is an awesome tool. And as we get more of y'all nerds doing the AI and doing, with Pate doing his wizard time travel magic, we can create more with visuals. We can create more um, data that is consolidated, that connects some of these dots that would take us ages to do by hand. And it's just awesome. I love the community that we've built through just doing this, because it was like, all right, we've been watching Lady Babylon for a long time. Like when I joined, there was just a bunch of drama, and again, like Renee talked about how I was like, I'm out of the loop of some of the stuff that's going on. I've just been watching and trying to like take notes or whatever. And to see like friendships form through just connecting and asking these questions. And also like the muse work to inspire different people's
Now that
art.
is a
And
huge
that,
alabastron. Oh
yeah,
my
like
God.
freaking Alabama. And now you can go to a fucking, sorry, museum and be like, oh, I know what that is, and I know how it's used, and I know what it meant. It's not just some random rock stick.
It's not just holding
The
perfume
Rabdon is
oil.
now. It's like, you know what the wand is for now, as an applicator,
I
and it's like,
stared at
yeah,
this.
I just love it so much. I love the library, and I'm a big fan of being a part of it. It's like a really big honor to work, and there's so much that I'm excited to do and write for it and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah, well said, Madalena. Um,
thanks.
and you highlight an important part. It's like we are so lucky to have really sharp people around us who really make that um, inquiry of history, right?
Yeah.
We really have smart people around us, aware people who have
So smart.
deep.
Yeah, Ammon has managed to attract this incredible community of creatives and intellectuals that is just I've never seen anything like it, and I'm just amazed to be a part, you know?
Right. This is the tip of the iceberg, and beneath this, there's kind of like a nerdy study group of
Yeah,
people that I consider myself very lucky to have access to. Right.
Yeah.
And
right?
Because it can transform your whole world, how you see the world, how you behave, how you communicate. You know, it's it's magical to see um, how it's affected other people, not just myself.
Mhm.
Makes me emotional, makes me want to cry. But really, it is a great tool, and yeah, I think everyone should be using it for in their day to day if they have questions, and like I don't have all the energy to answer everybody's questions here. Just look in the library. Like, let me equip you so you can start searching when you have the time, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we're not claiming anything's perfect here either.
yeah, everything's under construction, right?
This is all
And
on.
there's
Well,
more to
this is one
add.
thing I
So
wanted to ask you guys. If people from our communities want to get in touch with you in order to help contribute in some way, how could
Yeah.
they get in touch with the Soma Library?
Yeah, so we have a channel in the Lady Babylon Discord that Chewy and Dr. Hillman run. So yeah, come into that channel. You can ask a question, or you can point out some error. Right? I'm sure there's errors, right? Because this
yeah,
is our journey. This is our notes, and like I'm sure I've gotten many things wrong. Right. So, I mean, this is a living document. It's a wiki. It's just like Wikipedia. Remember back when Wikipedia was kind of basic and there's some problems, and now it's
Still is.
good. So like let's work on this for some years and let's get this really good, right? So
Right.
yeah.
We've all been fighting with poor Almond's Wikipedia page. Don't go there. go to their wiki for Almond here. They got a much more accurate biography.
That's funny.
I
Yeah.
finally got his Google image changed because it was just a picture. If you Google Amon Hillman, it was just a picture of Ducktail Dan, and I
Oh
was
my
like, "Oh
god.
man, that sucks." Like, here, let me fix that. So
You mean the guy who just shames weirdos online and says they're not correct Christians?
I don't
Oh,
pay
that guy is
attention
so
to it,
terrible.
but
Yeah, I can't
it
handle
was
him.
that guy.
Anyway,
Never.
but this has been so fun, guys. What about
Oh,
you, Subatomic? Anything you want to end with?
Uh no, there's so much more that we could go into, but this has been great. This has been informative for me as well. Like, the reason I do this is to learn. So obviously I don't know everything, right?
We'll have to come back and do a part two and get Bori again, maybe Ion, and we can look through some more articles, answer some questions, and
Yeah,
have some fun because this was great.
appreciate it.
thank you
It
so
was a great
much.
conversation.
So everyone, make sure you check out the description below, and you can find the link. It's hypatianostikoi.com, and then you go to Lady Babylon to get to the Lady Babylon wiki. Right there, Soma Library Nostikoi. So make sure you check out the link. And if you, like they were saying, if you go to the Lady Babylon Discord, you can find them under the Soma Library tab. If you wish to contribute, just tag either Subatomic or Madalena, or just leave them a question or a comment. They really appreciate you and all of your support. Anything you want to offer or say, I'm sure they want to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Right. So check out the website. Also, make sure you go and you, of course, subscribe to Lady Babylon to go get it from the source themselves to support Ammon and Chewy. And make sure you go subscribe to Madalena if you're not already on her channel. What's your channel called again? I know it's in the description, but
It's Madalena Casonia now. So
okay, because you keep changing it. It was Priestess of
it
Alabaster,
was
and
Priestess of Haggai, Priestess of Alabaster, and I was like, I'm just changing it.
I like
So
Athonia. It's great. Why
yeah.
not? Beautiful. So go subscribe to Madalena. Make sure you come and follow the Gnosticoi, HypatiaGnosticoi.com for the Soma Library, and check them all out on the LB Discord. So thank you, everyone. Peace and love. You want to guys say goodbye to the audience?
See you. Love you.
See you. Love you.
Good night.
Take care, everyone. Next time. Peace.